Hello, once again, this is Dr. Jimmy with part 12 of Halloween Horror Nights History for 2008, Reflections of Fear. Yes, and we're going to continue with our scare zones from 2008, but first, I did make a slight error in my previous video, part 11. I was talking about a particular character who had played cowardly, well, not cowardly at all, rather, quite a fierce lion in the Path of the Wicked, named Tanokas, nice chap, and that he has gone on to be in the Bill and Ted show the past couple of years. I made an error referencing the character he played Bill and Ted year before last. I said it was Nellie. He didn't play Nellie, he played Usher. Yes, and I have, I think you should cut me some slack. Middle-aged white guy, not exactly the target audience for the sort of R&B music performed by Nelly and or Usher, and I think I should be given some slack for getting them in reverse. I think that I should be credited just for knowing that they're knowing who they are at all. Okay, because not target audience for that sort of music. Not exactly. They don't exactly write their music for me. I'm not so yeah. All right. Now, getting past that, move forward. There was another thing I was going to tell you about. I mentioned the Headless Horseman was in the American Gothic Scare Zone. What I should have told you is he was should have been called the horseless headman because he had no horse. Much less horse, just a man walking about with no head, or with actually a bit more head than you usually see the Headless Horseman, and a lot less horse than you usually see a Headless Horseman, because he had no horse at all, but he had about, maybe about 40% head. Not 50, but 40%, because it was cut off right here, and so it's like part of his lower jaw appendage was still there, but above this was hacked off, hack, nasty. Rather gruesome way of decapitating, kind of leaving it right through the rather than through the neck, but through the head itself. Rather nasty and horrific. And what I didn't mention about this Headless Horseman figure that we saw in the what I saw in the American Gothic was that he wasn't just in American Gothic, because I covered houses before, right? What I forgot to mention about him was that he was in the Hallow as well as American Gothic. Yes. He had a host scene in the house, the Hallow, with all sorts of heads that were hanging from the ceiling that you would bump into, and then he would come lurking out, and nasty water dripping on you, and something going on above you with the heads moving about, and then all of a sudden there he was, the Headless Horseman himself, laughing his hysterical laughter. So yeah, he did actually appear in the house called the Hallow, although it wasn't the Hollow, Sleepy Hollow, it was the Hallow because it was the like Stonehenge Halloween thing. So I forgot to mention that he was in that house when I covered the house a couple videos ago, just to get there because he was involved in the scare zone. Alright, now we go to Asylum in Wonderland, which is where I sort of left off previous video. Okay, Asylum in Wonderland, as I said, took the Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass concept and twisted it, made it evil and sick and twisted. And once again, similar to Path of the Wicked, where you begin and there's the witch and she sort of interacts with you, there was a similar character in Asylum in Wonderland on Hollywood Boulevard. When you went up from the front of the park, if you went along toward Hollywood Boulevard, there you would, as you turned toward the main strip of Hollywood Boulevard, there was a large mushroom, and on top of the mushroom was the caterpillar. Who's, I don't know what he had in his pipe, but he was similar concept to Chucky's Insort Emporium, where as you came around there and he saw you, he began to make nasty comments. Things like, yes, those are bad shorts on you, you fat pig, and nice things like that that basically made people, some people got offended, and I guess they took the caterpillar out. You had all the other sort of Asylum characters lurking around and you had Alice, of course, all bloody. And what's interesting about this is that as the event progressed from week to week, they got gorier in this particular scare zone. The Red Queen, not the Red Queen, but the Queen of Hearts, and she had a looking glass, mirror, broken mirror, but still it was, reflections, connections. We had the White Rabbit with his stopwatch, and we had the Mad Hatter, which had his rather gruesome mask. The one, no, incorrect. The gruesome mask on the Mad Hatter was in the house. Again, a character in a house that I forgot to mention last time. In the house, Scary Tales, there was an Alice scene. And that kind of connects to the scare zone. I didn't mention it when I covered the Scary Tales on the earlier video. In the Scary Tales house, there was a scene where we went to Wonderland, and there was a Mad Hatter, there was Alice on the bed with eating the entrails of the, it was either the White Rabbit or the March Hare, and the Hatter would come running out to interact with you. And what's cool about this particular Hatter is if you happen to get the right Hatter, there was one character, friend of mine named Valdez, who, if you yelled out, "Is it tea time?" or something like this to get the Hatter's attention, he would then proceed to hard gay you. If you're wondering what the hell that means, don't worry, it's nothing sinister or perverse. If you're familiar with the internet, videos, meme, whatever you want to call it, a Japanese wrestler named Razor Ramon, who is actually straight, but portrays a character called Hard Gay. Razor Ramon wears the looks little leather shorts and vest and sunglasses, but he has this thing where he just sort of raises his arms up in the air and does a pelvic thrust and goes woo. Yeah, he does that a lot. And so that's what is meant by hard gaying someone, when you do that pelvic thrusting and going woo. So that's what the Hatter would do if you mentioned tea time, and it was the right Hatter. And it was a lot of fun to discover the weird interconnecting, just like the Fancy Peacock thing with the Gimp in Doomsday. Anyway, so getting back to the scare zone, the Hatter at the scare zone Asylum in Wonderland was a face character, to use a Disney phrase, someone who doesn't wear an elaborate mask that you can't see the real face, and he would wheel out a whole big table, and it was on wheels, and it had all sorts of scary things, dormouse that's dying and stuff, and blood and guts all over it, for a really mad tea party. And it would be a whole interaction with the guests. We went through there with a group, and we found ourselves talking to the Hatter for some time, and all sorts of innuendos and interaction with us and the Hatter, and what we're going to have for tea, or who was going to be the main course. It was really quite delightful. Fun. Really neat way of interacting with the guests during the scare zone. So these guys are doing a terrific job in that Asylum scare zone. It did get sort of a bit of controversy with people, it's just a photo op. It was a bit more than just a photo op. We got some decent scares there as well, but there was a lot of fun as well. I enjoy that. Scare zone doesn't have to always be, relentless horror pursuit, destroy the guests. It can also be creep the guests out, or even entertain the guests. There's all different types of things happening in different scare zones. Throughout the park. So you have different types of entertainment going on, which creates the variety, which makes the experience, because people go to Halloween Horror Nights for different experiences, not just everyone wants the one thing. Your 13-year-old boy may want to be pursued through the streets by chainsaws the whole time. His mother may just want to sit down and enjoy watching an elaborately designed character doing something interesting visually. You never know. Okay, getting back to the scare zone. So right now we go to the Streets of Blood. The Streets of Blood were connected to the house Body Collectors Collections of the Past. was located in New York. Now this year, in the previous years, New York scare zones might have spread all the way down the street of New York and maybe even include a bit of a Sting Alley. So the Zombie-geddon in 2000, not Zombie-geddon, Dead Tropolis in 2006, for example, did that. But this year, because there were problems and possibly even complaints from operations, we don't know, they decided that from this point on they would keep the entranceway to the Revenge of the Mummy queue area to go into the ride clear, allowing greeters and queues to go in. And it's always been a fairly popular attraction and does sort of fit in because it's horror themed to the event, and usually is open during the event. I've usually ridden it the past couple years since I finally got on the damn thing, and at least a couple times during the event. Not as much as the Jaws ride, won't be doing that anymore, but still, I do probably go on Mummy more often now, with no Jaws ride to go on to. Anyway, so they moved it over, so it's only in the area over by where they have the Fifth Avenue area, and they have the the thing that looks like Tiffany's and the thing that looks a little bit like Macy's and all of that along there, and then they've got the Guggenheim and the newspaper, and then over there's the big where the queue area usually is. They have the the library, the back, but between the queue area and the park and that whole area of everything after Finnegan's and the Mummy, all of that side of New York there with the park area, that became the scare zone area for New York, and that's pretty much where the scare zones in New York have been, or just at Sting Alley. But they didn't do a Sting Alley one this year, in 2008. Having sniffles. Okay, so the idea here was it was the streets of London in 1888. It was connected to body collectors, and you have the body collectors, and they're done just like their inspiration, the gentleman from the Hush episode of Buffy, gliding through the fog, because they put the little wheelie shoes on so they could just sort of glide without even, and they're sliding around very creepy like. And you also had the assistants and a bunch of wanton whores going up to proposition you, and hello, would you care for a good time, governor? That sort of thing, because they're Cockney whores. Some of them got into the character. I actually brought a penny, a coin, a twopence actually, a tuppence from Britain, a British tuppence from the era with a picture of Queen Victoria on it. I mean, 19th century tuppence. One night to see if I could freak out one of the... They didn't know what it was, so I didn't take them up on it. But and all sorts of other creepy Victorian type people lurking about. Also, there were a couple of nifty hearses located in a couple of key areas to add to the effect. Victorian gas lamps, like you might see in London in that era, to give it that feeling, lots of fog, so it gave the feel of you being in that era of Victorian London. And the hearses, a couple of them, had a couple of clues, a couple of points, which fit into the whole mysterious, legendary truth game, which we'll get to in another video. Well, so you had all this going on, and the soundtrack was really neat in the scare zone. It was Camille Saint-Saëns' music, the Danse Macabre, which, if you are a Disney fan, you might remember was from the very, 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 very first silly symphony cartoon, Skeleton Dance, Yes, really creepy music. I like that. And during that whole thing, I had one of my favorite scares in my whole entire time of going, to Halloween Horror Nights. Not a boo, you're scared scare, but one of those creepy little scares that sort of clings to you and hits you harder later on. It was just one body collector in the fog in the park, just sort of standing perfectly still. And when he realized that I looked at him and I made eye contact, he just went like that. And as simple as that movement is, it was one of those sort of scares. Not a terrified, but one of those kind of scares. And then, later may hit you in your dreams a few days later. I'll have to come back for later because it's already past 15 minutes again.